Number 2, Woodstock 99.
This is infamous.
Woodstock was a massively successful music festival started in the 60s, which started a wave of large music festivals popping up around the world. It was known as the Mecca for hippies until it died with the end of the movement, but in 1999 it was resurrected as a tribute to the 13th anniversary of the festival. But instead of catering to old hippies, however, the lineup this time catered to the current generation, with bands like Metallica, Korn, Limp Bizkit, Kid Rock, Megadeth, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and many more on the lineup. Honestly, the lineup was pretty damn good.
That lineup is insane. I'm not going to lie. Like, I was 7 when this was around. And, yeah, I mean, come on. The Chemical Brothers, James Brown, Creed, Counting Crows, Everclear, Everlast, Fatboy Slim, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Rage Against the Machine, Our Lady's Peace, Limp Bizkit, Live, Lit. You know, there's so many bands. The Offspring, my first band I ever listened to. Crazy.
I would have went to this. But unlike the original Woodstock, which was largely a free and volunteer event, the organizers of Woodstock 99 had one thing at the top of their minds: greed, as it seems everything that went into planning this Woodstock had the intention of making it as miserable as possible for fans. For one, instead of being held out in a grassy field, Woodstock 99 was held on an old concrete military base, a much more brutal terrain when it comes to hot weather and drinking all day.
So I come from a high heat country like Australia, which is 38, 40 degrees plus. And when you have high heat and you have the surface, which is all concrete, obviously that concrete is going to retain that heat. And it's also, if it's painted white, it's also going to reflect some of that heat as well. Well, maybe not white, but like it still reflects some of that heat as well. So, yeah, I can see why this is where this is going.
Temperatures got up to 100 degrees, with many people collapsing from heat exhaustion. Water was price gouged, and
so high heats, and you're on a surface like that, and you're dancing all day, you're going to need a lot of water. And if you're paying $4 for water, which back then probably is like $8 now, if you account for inflation, or $7, $8 now for water, you know, you will go through a good couple of liters a day. So I can understand where this is going to be bad.
Festival made sure no one brought in any outside food or water. Attendees were left with the vibe that the festival...
To be honest, that's pretty standard. At some festivals, they don't allow you to bring food or water into the festival, depending on the festival. I wasn't even allowed to bring in an empty water bottle into Ultra Music Festival. So that is pretty standard for some festivals, but for camping festivals, it's a little different. So camping festivals sometimes allow you to bring your own food in and your own water and drinks and things like that. They do have a limit on how much alcohol you can bring in, but for food and drinks and non-alcoholic drinks, you can usually bring however much you can carry, basically. That's pretty standard. It just depends on the event.
Festival didn't give a fuck about them and was happy to let them suffer if it meant squeezing more money from their pockets. Vendors were price gouging the shit out of their food, bathrooms were few and disgusting as usual, and as the music got wilder, so did the crowd. Reports say that when bands like Korn and Limp Bizkit hit the stage, the crowds got particularly rabid. Limp Bizkit especially got a lot of the blame for this nonsense. As the band performed their hit song Break Stuff, the audience began to break stuff. People were pissed off at the shit treatment from the festival and started ripping down infrastructure and crowd surfing on plywood, which honestly does look fun as shit.
I mean, look at it. I'm not going to lie. Like, the event side and manager, he's like, yeah, that's unsafe. Get them down. Like, they're going to hurt themselves. But me personally, that looks like a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie. It's more fun than, you know, trying to crowd surf with just your body. If you're crowd surfing on a piece of plywood, that looks like so much fun. Yes, I do have a crazy background.
Can't lie. The Limp Bizkit set seems to be where the real chaos started as fans became increasingly belligerent and violent toward the actual festival.
Well, yeah, Fred Durst who's the lead singer of Limp Bizkit. He is in particularly been blamed quite a lot for this festival over the years for his role in stirring up the crowd to basically destroy stuff. And he didn't stop the show when he could see that things were going wrong. He just basically antagonized. And that's pretty well known. I mean, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that the festival organizers are out of the woods yet. I'm going to comment more on this in a second.
The big wall that was meant as an art exhibit for peace was ripped down and destroyed by the drunk Kid Rock fans. The water stations that were there were ripped apart and destroyed, flooding a lot of the grounds, with porta potties also getting mixed.
That is literally raw sewage. Like that is definitely just raw sewage there. From an event management perspective, that's just gross. And completely negligent. And I think whoever had to use them has every right to sue or get their money back, because that is just absolutely disgusting and completely, from a health and safety point of view, obviously, if you have people dancing around in shit, literally, they're going to get sick. And people don't want to go to festivals to get sick. And they can get seriously sick as well. This is not just a cold and the flu. Like, you can, seriously get proper sick from this.
That is not mud, you guys. By the last day of Woodstock 99, the crowd had fully morphed into a pack of methed out rabid hyenas, with only destruction and chaos on their minds. Vendor booths and facilities were being looted and destroyed, and among the crowd, worse things were taking place. Many reports of different kinds of assault were officially filed once the festival ended. You see, in the hippie generation at Woodstock, many women would walk around with their tits out or fully naked for a sense of freedom. But this wasn't the flower people of 1969. This was a festival
These were the
full of
pros.
outraging douchebags who had devolved further into madness than they normally were. In this rabid environment, a group of peace activists passed out free candles to the crowd that were meant to serve as a vigil to honor victims of gun violence. The Woodstock barbarians, however, saw them as torches for an angry mob and proceeded to burn down parts of the festival.
You know what? You do stupid things happen. You give people in general, okay? So when we are dealing with people and the general public, no matter if it's in nightlife or whether it's in mass participation events like festivals or whatever, and you involve alcohol, drugs, or anything like that, people become savages. And I'm not just talking about this particular event, I'm talking in general. Like, if you put up, I guess you could, in a drunken environment, you put up, for a themed party, you put up a whole bunch of theming. If people are within arm's reach of that theming, they're going to rip it down. In a lot of cases, if you know that they're going to drinking a lot of alcohol, it's going to get ripped down, it's going to be torn to shreds, it's going to get destroyed. This particular example, though, where you have people who are giving out candles at a festival, mate, come on, common sense. They're going to burn shit. They're going to either burn themselves, burn their clothes, or they're going to burn someone else, or they're going to burn something else. So, obviously, when we have candles at events, usually they're all electronic candles now. A lot of venues won't allow you to actually bring in candles. I know this is going beyond sort of festivals, but most venues now won't allow naked flames to be used at events. They require them to be electronic. And if they are naked flames, then it really is event by event basis in terms of when and where they're used. Because, a lot of venues don't like candles because it's an open flame.
Tents, trucks, and piles of garbage were all set on fire.
Yep,
During the final band's performances, multiple fires were burning across the festival grounds, with one burning down a large speaker tower. Once the music was over, the violence grew. The fans...
Okay, so how they pushed that... I'm actually more impressed than anything that they're actually able to take that down, because that's not a light thing, like to take down a delay speaker like that. So in the festival scene, we have what's called... delay speakers, which so that's a pretty big speaker and a pretty big piece of trust. So delay speakers are put a little bit further back from the festival, like the main crowd of the festival. So they're usually in line with where the tech desks are and the front of house tech area is, so that the people can hear further back what is being heard when they play it on stage. And I'm not going to go into the physics of it all now. I'll go into it in another video. But basically, when you play something on stage, there is a delay in which you will hear it because of the distance that sound travels and the speed of sound travels. So you put a delay speaker in so the people at the back can hear everything that the people at the front are hearing at the same time. So you don't hear that like echoey effect. The fact that you've got this being pushed over at a festival is kind of impressive, I'll be honest. Like, nowadays we don't really plan for that sort of level of anarchy, and plus we would have ballasts on them that you literally could not move it without machinery now. Like, majority of big structures like that will have concrete or water ballasts on them weighing many tons that you can't physically move it. So I'm very surprised that they're able to get this down, and I'm pretty sure they didn't have any ballasts on that.
The music was over, the violence grew. The fans broke open ATMs, destroyed and looted everything they could. People were attacking each other. Men were assaulting women. The situation got so bad that 700 police in riot gear were called in to stop the chaos. All in all, about 44 people ended up being arrested, while the number of injuries is somewhere in the thousands. Woodstock 99 for a long time was regarded as the worst festival disaster of all time for many years afterward. The festival organizers blamed the bands, especially Limp Bizkit frontman Fred Durst, claiming he incited the crowd to riot. The media blamed it on the crowd being angry white men, and many blamed the festival organizers for clearly being solely focused on their own greed. Personally, I do hold the organizers mostly responsible.
So I'm just going to quickly wrap up this case study of Woodstock 99. Now, there are plenty of documentaries out there on Woodstock 99 that you can check out in your own time, which I actually recommend you do because it goes into a little bit more depth and a little bit more information about what actually happened. And I have watched them, so I can give a little bit more insight into this particular case study. Now, from an event management point of view, it's a complete disaster. Woodstock 99 is a case study in event management courses now. When I did my event management course, it was a case study because so many things went wrong. Now, people riot when they don't have enough food, when they don't have enough water, and when things are unsafe, unsanitary, and they're not having a good time. The only reason why they would have done this is because you failed as an event organizer to put on a safe environment for these people. Now, price gouging isn't something new to festivals. Price gouging happens quite a lot. However, to this extent where it impacts the health and safety of people, that's when it's different. So price gouging of water, I strongly oppose. I think water is a fundamental human right, and that people should be provided this for free at festivals, or at least water points so people can get it. As you saw in this video, you could see many people passed out and people trying to escape the heat because it was so hot. And I've attended many festivals which are extremely hot and dangerous, to a point where it is dangerous to attend because of the heat and having no shade and no protection. So having those sort of circumstances, a lot of those factors coming together, and also the fact that, stupid things were happening. People handing out candles. There was not enough security. There was not enough food. There was not enough accessible water. All these things put together leads to a very, very angry crowd. And yes, I won't discard the fact that the bands might have, encouraged the crowd, especially Fred Durst. Fred Durst has that sort of personality, and it's not the first time where he riles up the crowd. And that's sort of, you can argue that's a factor. At the end of the day, they're just a band. The major mitigating factors behind this was, not having clean toilets, not having enough water, not having enough food. And as event managers, promoters, organizers, health and safety comes first. And how do we achieve this? We achieve this with having well-trained staff, people who know what they're doing, and enough of those security personnel to adequately manage these crowds. The second is to make sure that you're providing plenty of water to your festival. If this goes back to knowing the weather ahead of time, which we do know. We know from forecasting. We have the technology people that we know what the weather is going to be like ahead of time. So if we know it's going to be really, really hot, then perhaps we need to look at how much water do we have on site? How much water are we going to make sure that we're going to have enough water for everyone so everyone stays hydrated, cool, calm, and collected. And when it comes to food and price gouging, well, obviously that still happens in the festival industry. There is prices are a little bit inflated. You can kind of expect that because obviously the food quality might not be that great. Food quality has gone up in festivals, in my opinion, over the last couple of years. However, that being said, festivals still obviously charge a little bit more than usual. And, that's going to happen. You have to come to expect that. But when it's double the price, triple the price, and it's price gouging to the point that no one can buy food, which is probably the case with Woodstock 99. Like, you don't riot because it's an extra $2 or $3 for you what you would usually pay for. But when it's, $30 for a hamburger or something like that, that's when riot starts. That's when people get pissed off, and that's when people get hurt. And obviously making stupid decisions like handing out 1,000 candles or how many stupid candles they gave out. Don't give people fire. People are going to burn themselves. People in general are stupid. And I don't mean that in terms of human civilization. I just mean people who are drunk, people who are on drugs. They do stupid things. They play with fire. And what happens when you play with fire? You either burn yourself, burn someone else, or you burn something that you shouldn't. And that's what's happened with this case. Now, with all of the allegations of the rape and sexual assaults and things like that, and blaming it on white men, I mean, I can't make a judgment on that. I wasn't there, and I'm also a cis white man. I'm not going to defend the white male race. I'm not. I should be stupid like that. But what I will say to that is that it comes down to security. Having enough security to prevent these things from happening. And I think that's the biggest thing. And being greedy and not having enough security, not cleaning the toilets. It all comes back to the planning and the management of the event. And I actually read a documentary from Fatboy Slim, who was performing at this concert. And he got pulled off stage by his tour manager and said, we're not staying here. It's unsafe for us as artists, let alone as a crowd. So, a crazy, crazy festival, Woodstock 99.
And now we've arrived to the worst music festival disaster of all time. Number 1, Fyre Fest.
If you don't know this, then you've been living under a rock. But yes, I've seen both the documentaries on Fyre Fest. This will be nothing new to me. Again, another good case study that's going to be in event management courses for years to come.
You know this one. I know you know this one. But my God, is it hilarious and deserving of the top spot. Fyre Fest, this is hard to talk about without laughing. Fyre Fest was supposed to be the most luxurious, one-of-a-kind, clout-chasing shit can of a music festival for pathetic influencers. Sold as taking place on a private island, once owned by holy prophet Pablo Escobar.
I'm going to cut it there, and I'm just going to let the video roll, because we already know, a lot of us will already know what happened with Fyre Fest. If you don't know, basically, they tried to put on this festival, and they didn't even have the island. They didn't even book the island. The island wasn't booked. And then in 1 month out, they finally found an island, and it had no infrastructure on the island. And eventually what ended up happening, all the people rocked up. There was no accommodation for them. All the artists pulled out, and it led to a lawsuit. This guy called Billy McFarlane on the right there, he ended up going to jail for a couple years. His partner, if you don't recognize him there, is Ja Rule, a famous rapper, and he got a bit of more or less a slap on the wrist, if not nothing. But yeah. And now, as of the recording of mid-March 2025, they are now trying to start another Fyre Fest. So they're trying to do another one. So they tried to do this festival. They marked it as a massive influencer thing. So they brought on all these influencers and did a monster marketing campaign. It was probably one of the most successful festival marketing campaigns in history. However, the problem is when you market something and you market a product, you must be able to deliver on said product. And they did not deliver on said product. So people arrived. There was no food. There was no water. There was basically emergency shelter tents that were used instead of the actual accommodation that they booked. And some of these accommodations were not cheap. Thousands and thousands of dollars were put towards making sure that they had cabins, like actual proper cabins. So that was supposed to be the festival site. We'll move on a little bit further just to wrap this up. They rocked up and they got emergency sheltered like this. It is literally emergency shelter. It's what FEMA gives out for when there's hurricanes and stuff. So, and to his credit, he tried to calm the crowds down, but the crowds were pissed off. Their luggage was thrown out of the back of a sea container and just thrown out to the masses, to whoever who could grab it and claim it was theirs. And it was an absolute terrible festival that never actually happened.
Luckily, he didn't do this to the hippie generation or they would have eaten him. The clusterfuck of zero organization or plan for anything led to a chaotic situation. All flights were already booked out, meaning guests had no way of getting home and just had to wait on the island, with the only food being this now legendary lineup of some of the most popular artists of the day, most of whom I've never fucking heard of. Now, Fyre Fest isn't the most...
He might not have heard of them, but I've heard of a lot of them. Blink-182, Major Lazer, Migos, these are big names. It's weird how they try to book Blink-182 and put that in there when they've got Disclosure and Major Lazer and acts that are like not rock acts at all. In fact, I think he's the only rock act. Well, Blink-182, the band, is the only rock act in that entire thing, like proper rock. Like, you got punk rock and then you got Claptone. Weird. I mean, it's a shit festival anyway, but like, it's a weird booking. 8 weeks to set up a festival in ideal conditions is, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it is extremely difficult. It doesn't happen. So in the festival industry, we don't really have that amount of time. That is way too short to get all the logistics and all of the supplies booked, everything planned, designed, and put together. I mean, you could try and do it. I doubt you'd be able to get it done just because it is incredibly difficult to do that. You need to book staff, you need to book supplies, you need to design it, there's so much behind that you need to do. Festivals take a year, if not more, in advance with a full-time team to plan, depending on the size of the festival. And to put something on like this on an island which has no infrastructure, it's borderline actually crazy, like criminally insane crazy to think you could put that on in that amount of time.
I mean, shit, planning and carrying out a wedding in 8 weeks is extremely difficult. This was supposed to be a top, luxurious, one-of-a-kind festival for rich people, and this was to happen on a secluded island with zero infrastructure at all. Also, none of the announced artists had been paid yet, which is kind of a problem. On top of all that, the festival was kicked off the island it had announced and had to find a new location. They settled on what was an open construction yard on a much larger public island, which they then photoshopped to make it look like it was still its own private island. As the date got closer, Billy the dipshit was getting pressed for payments he couldn't afford, while still promising a lavish festival he had no possible way of delivering. A normal person would probably consider canceling the damn thing at this point, but not Billy. Never once being deterred, Billy continued digging his hole deeper and deeper, never announcing or saying anything, until finally guests started arriving on the island. After paying an exorbitant amount on tickets that included a private jet to the island, luxury villas, free drinks, and celebrity food, guests were flown in on a dinky commuter plane, then picked up on old school buses to the festival grounds. The luxury villas were actually old hurricane tents that were soaking wet. Most of the infrastructure wasn't built, and all of the artists ended up canceling after having not been paid. Guest luggage...
Yeah, so... that's one way not to have your artists come if you don't pay them. Artists will not rock up and will not fly and will not go to any event until they've been completely paid, and their teams won't allow them to go anyway. So it's not a case of, oh yeah, we'll perform and we'll wait to get paid afterwards. Artists are always paid up front because they know with festivals and bookings like this that, it's not their responsibility really to sell tickets. I mean, that changes depending on the artist's sort of contracts. Some artists do want to get involved with the promotion. I mean, some artists will say, yeah, I'm playing at this or whatever, but some artists don't get involved in like the promoting of the event. It's not their responsibility. They're booked and they're paid to play. Again, some people will go, oh, no, this is wrong. This is not what this artist did, or this doesn't. It all depends on the contract, but the majority of the time, which is what I say in generalization, the majority of the time, artists are getting paid by someone to play somewhere at some festival. And the promotion of it isn't up to them, and they're not a part of the actual festival itself. And yeah, so they obviously didn't get paid and they didn't rock up. And in terms of FEMA shelters, I mean, that's just, I actually wonder where they got them from, but yeah, that's pretty poor.
Was delivered by being thrown off of a cargo truck as everyone was told to just fend for themselves. Billy, who was actually still there for some reason, did try to calm the crowd and prevent the situation from getting worse, but as the sun set, the attendees all realized they were stranded on this island for the night with no real shelter, and their luxury vacation had just turned into Lord of the Flies. I'm honestly amazed Billy even addressed them and didn't just disappear. Luckily, he didn't do this to the hippie generation or they would have eaten him. The clusterfuck of zero organization or plan for anything led to a chaotic situation. All flights were already booked out, meaning guests had no way of getting home and just had to wait on the island, with the only food being this now legendary cheese sandwich. This picture went viral as most of the population started hearing about Fyre Fest and what a hilarious fuck up it was. The sheer absurdity of the whole event and the idea of a bunch of spoiled influencers stranded on an island was hilarious to most people, leading Fyre Fest to becoming a household name for all the wrong reasons. Billy was eventually sentenced to 6 years in prison and had to forfeit $26 million, though he was being sued for a hell of a lot more than that. Billy succeeded in making himself one of the biggest clowns in the world, and now he wouldn't even be able to open a lemonade stand without being laughed at by everyone. Ja Rule immediately broke up with Billy,
which is ironic because now they're doing a Fyre Festival 2.0.
and legally got away with his part in the whole event, but is also still just seen as a joke nowadays. Fyre Fest became legendary for its fantastically fraudulent fuck-up, leading to 2 official documentaries and countless skits and jokes about it, with it now being widely known as the worst festival of all time. And that is my list for the 10 worst music festival disasters of all time.
Okay, so we're going to stop it there. So yeah, Fyre Fest, there's not really much to comment on that. You know, that's a pretty obvious one. Nothing that haven't already commented on, but you know, you can't plan a festival in 8 weeks. Like, it's just not feasible. And you just don't, unless you've got a team of 50 people working full time, and you're able to liaise with your suppliers very quickly, get your permits. The problem is local councils and you sort of negotiating with them, because they're the ones that are going to take their time to get back to you and get things across the line, and getting through the red tape as well. Like, that's the biggest one, is the red tape, is the applications, the licensing, the fees, all of that. That's what's going to take the most amount of time. You know, an AV supplier, you can go to an AV supplier and you can have stuff pretty quickly. You can go to a stage supplier and get stuff pretty quickly, but it's all the regulations and the red tape and getting all of that sort of stuff sorted. That's the stuff that's going to take the most amount of time. And in this case, you know, you're planning a luxury festival that has on an island that has no infrastructure. It's just laughable. Like, there's not really much I can give in terms of event management sort of input on this one, just because of how bad and how poorly it was managed. I mean, there's more information I could probably go into, but this video is already long enough as it is. From an event management point of view, we would take usually a year to plan the event, and then we would take more than a couple people full-time to plan and book it. The biggest issue now that the festival industry faces is actually financing. So, as they said in this video, that there was him getting chased by debitors and him just paying off one investor after another. The biggest issue and hurdle for the festival industry right now is money, and the festival industry just does not have any money. And it's incredibly difficult to continue to have festivals because of the fact that all the prices have gone up. People are not willing to spend anymore, and there's a cost of living crisis. This is especially true in the UK, where we lost 60 plus festivals last year alone that either postponed or cancelled. 35 festivals in 2023. So it's gone on an exponential rise of festivals that have cancelled, and they're mostly independent ones. The ones that are done by like Live Nation and big companies, AUG, those festivals still go on because they're done by a conglomerate company, or they're a festival like Glastonbury or Tomorrowland that are going to sell out every year. But the independent festivals are the ones that are really struggling, and the ones that are not going to be coming back year on year because of the cost of living. And when we see with Fyre Festival, which was in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, and it's laughable, or 2018. And you know, Fyre Festival is laughable because of the fact that they tried to run an event with only 8 weeks of planning. Even to the average person, that's laughable. So just before I wrap up, a Fyre Festival, that is a terrible example of what a festival should be. The festival that basically never happened. And if you want more information on that one, there's 2 great documentaries worth watching that I've watched both of them. From an event management / event professional point of view, you can't build a festival in 8 weeks. I don't know of anyone who has. It's incredibly difficult, and that's the problem when you have someone or a group of individuals, an artist or whoever, who wants a festival to happen but has no event planning, event management, event industry experience on it as a whole, and expects that it's going to be in a cakewalk and we can plan this in 8 weeks. So it's completely not the case, especially in the case of Fyre Festival. They didn't have the permits. They didn't have the permissions. They didn't even have the islands. And when they finally found an island, it was definitely had no infrastructure. It was a public island, which was against what they were saying. It was supposed to be a private island, but no longer is. It was a public island. And didn't have the infrastructure, didn't have the water, the food, the transport, and they hadn't even paid their artists. So there's not really much we can comment on other than the fact that it was just a complete fraud. And if they thought that they could pull this off in 8 weeks with the financial backing that they had, it's completely laughable and a completely ridiculous sentiment. And, I do feel sorry for the people who went, regardless of who you think they are. Like the video said, a bunch of rich kids. I don't care who it is. No one should be subjected to that level of negligence. And it is a fraud. Like plain black and white, that festival was fraud. And the fact that they're trying to do it again is completely ridiculous. And but weirder things have happened, so you never know. They might actually put the festival on and it'd be a decent festival, but I highly doubt it if it's the same guy involved. Anyways, my name is Bryn. I'm an event professional with 15 years worth of experience, knowledge, and I hoped you liked this video. It's something new I'm doing. It's a new channel, and if you enjoyed this, then feel free to hit a like. Hit up the comments as well if there was anything you disagreed with or you agreed with, or maybe I got a fact wrong, maybe I didn't. I'm not perfect, and if there was something in the video that struck you and you were even at one of these festivals maybe, and you want to share your experience, share it down below. Anyways, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you on the next one. Goodbye. Catch ya.